thank you all very much for coming to the 4th McMillan Character Education Speaker Series, featuring our wonderful speaker tonight, Coach Bob Hurley. We're all very excited to hear the coach's story of his team and all that goes into molding young men. Before we get to the program, I want to thank the Hrncir family for their generous support of this special speaker series. Thank you, Betty, John, their children Trent and his wife Harlan, and Garrett and his wife Keely. Trent is a 1999 graduate of Kinkaid. He was a 3-sport star athlete here and earned a football scholarship to SMU, played all 4 years. Garrett attended 9th grade at Kinkaid before moving with his family to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and completing high school at Holland Hall. Because of their great interest in sports and in character development, this speaker series has a special meaning to both of them. The Hrncir boys live in Chicago, and unfortunately they're not able to be with us tonight. Garrett and Keely are expecting their first child in just a few weeks. Trent, who with his wife Harlan have a lovely daughter, Cece, is traveling for work. I would like to ask Betty and John to stand so we can thank them for making this series possible. Betty and John. When the Hrncirs came to us about sponsoring this speaker series, they wanted to name it after someone at Kinkaid who left a strong mark on their entire family. In 2010, we changed the speaker series to honor that special person, Coach Gary McMillan. As many of you know, Coach Mack is a legend here at Kinkaid. He began his career at Kinkaid in 1974 teaching history and coaching football. By the time he officially retired in 2007, and he actually hasn't retired, he's still working. But by 2007, he had coached almost every sport, including several girls' varsity sports. And to top that off, he has 16 SBC titles in football. Today, he continues to coach the varsity boys golf team. How did they do last spring, Coach? They won SBC last spring. Along with 7th grade football and middle school wrestling. And I understand the 7th grade football team won yesterday, Coach. Is that right? Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. On top of his successes, Coach Mack embodies all the aspects that the Hrncir family envisioned the speaker series would be about: integrity, enthusiasm, love of youth, and Kinkaid. Coach Mack, would you please stand so that we can thank you for everything you've done for our students? We've had 3 previous speakers in this series, beginning with Joe Herman in 2005. Joe was a professional football player who was named Man of the Year while playing for the Baltimore Colts. He's the co-founder of Building Men and Women for Others, and was featured in his best-selling book, Season of Life, which is an excellent book about character in sports. Pat Williams was the 2nd fellow in 2007. Mr. Williams is Senior Vice President of the Orlando Magic basketball team, an inspirational speaker who speaks to various audiences around the country. Jerry Levias was our latest in 2010. Jerry Levias was the first African-American athlete to earn a football scholarship in the Southwestern Conference, where he attended SMU. He went on to play in the NFL, and today is an official with a local nonprofit organization, Boys and Girls Harlem. It's my pleasure now to introduce our moderator for this evening, Giff Nielsen, the former sports director of KHOU Channel 11. Giff attended Brigham Young University on a football and basketball scholarship. During his junior year, he turned his full attention to football as a quarterback. He graduated from BYU with a BA in communications. He was drafted by the Houston Oilers in 1978 and played quarterback for 6 years before retiring in 1984 to join the Channel 11 news team. He retired from the station in 2009 after 25 years of service. Giff has been inducted into the BYU Hall of Fame, the Utah Hall of Fame, and into the College Football Hall of Fame. He moderated another great event here at Kinkaid in 2007, a a conversation with Texas sport legends, an evening with Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan. When we heard Coach Hurley was able to speak, we thought Giff would be the perfect MC. Please join me in welcoming and thanking our host, Giff Nielsen, to the stage.
Earlier today. In fact, I was opening up an album and there they were, Roger Clemens, Nolan Ryan, and the Gifford sitting on the and to think I'm Roger's new agent. I'm Kobe's new agent also. And I think there's a package deal to finish the season with the Astros. Can you imagine how wild that will be? An old man, a 50-year-old man going out there on the mound throwing BBs at people. So it would be pretty interesting. We'd have to get his reaction to that. But I am so delighted to be here, Tom. It is great to be back here at Kinkaid and to, where's Georgia? Georgia, thank you, Georgia Piazza, the director of special events here at Kinkaid. And Tom Moore has been such a great friend over the years and communicated with me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm also, after I got done with my career at Channel 11, I opened up Memorial City Bank. Anybody need a loan? And will you pay it back? But I noticed back here our CEO, Alan Gage, is here with Patty, his wife, and Bill Gage with his family. Waverly's here. We sit on the board of Memorial City Bank, and we're actually the #1 bank in Texas in asset quality. So if you need a safe place to put your money, we can help you out. But that's not what we're here to talk about, but really it is. So we're grateful that you are here. You know, this is a very special evening, and I know you're going to get something out of this evening because we have got a very special person with us tonight. Life is a learning laboratory. We're all trying to figure things out and how to get better and how to do things. And everybody's story is just a little bit different. But you look at the people who've had success, and we certainly have that person tonight, and one of the great leaders, not only in just basketball, but one of the great leaders in our country, Coach Bob Hurley. He traveled here today from New Jersey, where he has spent the last 40 years coaching the St. Anthony Friars. Coach Hurley has won 26 state championships, if you can believe that, and more than 1,000 wins. Can you imagine over 1,000 pregame and halftime speeches? Trying to come up with things? I'm fascinated by that. He is known for his coaching tactics and as someone who demands commitment, self-control, and sacrifice both on and off the court. Basketball is not the most important thing to these young athletes. St. Anthony has sent over 150 players to Division I basketball programs, all on full scholarships. Coach, it's absolutely amazing, along with having 5 first-round NBA draft choices. Coach Hurley is the proud father of Bobby Hurley Jr., former point guard for Duke University, All-American, and of course the Sacramento Kings, and now is the associate head coach at the University of Rhode Island. This is kind of interesting. We'll talk about that because he's the older brother and he's working for the younger brother, but you know, I don't know what that dinner table was like. Danny Hurley, currently the head basketball coach at the University of Rhode Island. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest, Bob Hurley. So successful in life. Welcome to Kinkaid and welcome to Houston, Texas, my friend.
Thank you very much. It's terrific to be here. And before we get started, I just hope you can understand me. Because I'm going to, like, if you don't understand me now, when I get fired up and start talking quicker, it can get ugly.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We have to understand each other around here. You know, when I first came here, it was, hey, y'all. We're fixing to have a barbecue. That's not too bad. Then, you know, and I played with some of those guys. You know, I had Kenny Stabler one year. Hey. This is a big game. Look at all these people cheering right now. And then we Archie Manning, who, well, nobody can understand Archie, but we'll get it done. We'll get it done. Let's start just a little bit about your coaching career. Why did you decide to get into this?
Well, I was the oldest of 4 children, and my dad was a Jersey City police officer, my mom was a nurse, and I wound up having some time that I had to watch my brothers. So I think the only way I could really do it was to take them to the gym with me, take them to the playground that I grew up in, and go to their Little League games, work with them, and I started to find that, boy, I was really a busybody, and I wanted to do this stuff. So in my parish, I was in high school, and I was working for my parish, St. Paul's in Jersey City, and I was helping with the teams that I had played on when I was younger. And all of a sudden, at college, the men who had run the program all retired. And at 19, I was now like running all the teams in my parish. And somebody said to me after watching me coach, I want to coach a freshman team in high school. So 1968, I began coaching a freshman team. And I guess my lack of ambition has me still in the same place.
You know, it's kind of interesting. You go from that to becoming only one of 3 high school basketball coaches to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Isn't that amazing? I want to hear your thoughts when you were called or you were sent a letter saying, you know what? You have done so well. You're in the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the Junior Hall of Fame. It's not the Senior. It is the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Well, you know, everything in life is how you act on things when things aren't going so well. I've been nominated 3 times. The first 2 times on a Wednesday before the Final Four, you receive a phone call between 12 and 1 o'clock. And someone from the Basketball Hall of Fame will call you, and they'll tell you you're going to be in the next class, or we really liked your butt. So 2 years in a row, I got the phone call, we really like your butt. So the 3rd year I had been nominated, we were going to church, I'm Catholic, we were going to church on Wednesday during Lent, and that Saturday is going to be the final, the game's going to be in Indianapolis in the semifinal. So I'm carrying my grandson Gabriel, we're heading to 12 o'clock Mass, and the phone rings, and my wife sees the phone ring, and she says, well, I'm going to go back and get it. And she says, oh, it's a Basketball Hall of Fame. So since I'm 0 for 2, I say to her, just let it go, let's get to church. So she goes and picks it up, and she just says to the man, is 3 a charm? And he says, yes, he's been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So Mass seemed to go very quickly. And you know, when you're saying your prayers for those around you who need help, I needed help, so I was very happy that you know, one of my prayers was answered. And then we went to the Final Four, and at the Final Four on the Monday night of the championship game, it's Duke and Butler playing, and we go out at halftime, we go out to the court, you know, 60,000 people there, and you march out on the court, and going out on the court with Scottie Pippen, and then I'm going out with Karl Malone, but also there are representatives of the Olympic team from '60, which is Oscar Robertson, and also the 1992 Dream Team, which is Larry Bird. So here I am, not only just going out to court, look who I'm hanging with. It was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Bob, you were just right in there, weren't you?
I was in my element.
Larry Bird, Bob Hurley. Yeah, it all comes together like that.
And the whole experience, the way they welcome you into this fraternity, you know, that particular couple of days was great. But then when we went up to the Hall of Fame for the induction, 2 days, that was incredible. Just an absolutely great experience.
Wow. And you know, it's kind of interesting because you did it at a school that is a poor inner city school, a Catholic school, and it's more than just coaching at that school. I mean, you're a fundraiser, you're doing a lot of different things at that school to just keep it afloat.
Yeah, well, you know, I think where we live in the Northeast, Catholic education is at a, you know, way past the crossroad. They're having all kinds of trouble. It's about $12,000 it costs us to educate a kid, and our tuition is $5,000. So if you multiply that by 250 kids, who to me all seem worth it, we need to put time in to try to, you know, maybe I'm going to talk to you, maybe the bank can help me. We got quiet on that. might have a problem.
Okay,
I guess.
so you're in this situation where you're at this school, and it's against all odds that you can be this successful, but yet you are getting incredible notoriety. Even 60 Minutes wanted to come and do a piece on you, and did a piece on you, and others. And they named you, what, the Sage of, the Sage of St. Anthony.
Yeah, that's all well and good, but I was on the Cake Boss this year. So for every kid in Jersey City under 18, the Cake Boss was way more relevant. Steve Croft on 60 Minutes. Incredible, absolutely incredible experience. They call, and when they called us, my school got to know, and anytime there's a phone call to do something, I guess the phone call, you may have spoken to Kathleen or Diane Sears, and they take the message and now they try to interpret into my world where I'm not a computer person, I don't do email, so we have to try to get me to figure this out. And we're going through this whole process, and while we're going through it now, I get the message that he's called, Steve Croft. So I think somebody called up, and one of my friends is just busting my chops. We're having a good season, so I returned the phone call expecting it to be a comedy thing, and in fact it is Steve Croft. And he comes over and he starts following the team. The story for us is Mike kids respond to people observing them. We had a book written about us in 2004. We were undefeated that year. The book started way before the 2004 season. A documentary was done with a picture about our 2018. We were undefeated also. So when Steve Croft calls up and we're in the middle of, we haven't lost yet, you'd say, well, do you want to jinx it? No, we were racing, get him in. So if somebody was to call and wants us to do a Broadway show, we're ready. Because the track record has been very good so far. And it was great to sit down and watch 60 Minutes, as you all do, and then to become part of 60 Minutes, and then watch it. And we weren't the subject of them taking us apart because it was something there that they wanted to expose. They were trying to expose what we try to do with our kids, which was tremendous.
Well, I saw the 60-minute piece, and I don't know how many of you saw that piece, but I mean, there were some pretty stern things that were going on in practice during that piece. You were talking,
I don't know, talking would be the way.
Yeah, it wasn't really talking, but I mean, there were times when you were really calling out your players and going after them and challenging them. Were you okay with all of that, to show all that?
What happens is, what was thrust on me a long time ago was I started coaching at the school. And the longer I was there, the more I found out about some things perhaps I could do in addition to being a coach. And I have so many kids that come from one-parent households that don't have a male authority figure that I start to drift into these areas where, I'm the coach for the kid who only needs me to be the coach. But maybe I have to do a little bit more. So if you base, an average team in my school, more than half the kids are being raised by, a single parent. And boy, it's amazing. None of them ever say to me, you're too demanding. They like the fact that I have a curfew for them. And I monitor everything they do academically. And if there's a problem with the way they dress, somebody from the household will call me up and say, Coach, would you talk to John over this? And not that I relish that, it used to be able to become part of who I am. And every once in a while, because I'm dealing with adolescent males, it doesn't go so well. But, we've been undefeated for the last 2 years in basketball, but I've been undefeated in these situations with adolescent males. I haven't lost any of these things. Because it's done my way. My way is the alternative. I firmly believe in what we do, and I really believe that, the kids I have, they need the discipline through high school to get through situations around them that are very complicated. And if I can get them to a college campus, and once I get them on a campus, and they come home and see me Thanksgiving for the first time, nobody comes in and says, gee, Coach, I'm really annoyed that I'm now I'm now here, and everything's going so well. They accept the fact that I worry about them. And the only way I know to do this is to be hard as heck with them. And
you drive them. You drive them. I've done a lot of basketball drills in my life, but I've never put my hands on a carpet and pushed it all the way along the floor and just working every part of their body and every part of their mind.
And the other thing too is that there's a work ethic we want to develop that carries over into everything they do. And that if they've grown up in a society where perhaps some things have been given to them. You know, there's unfortunately an awful lot of kids in the urban area who are part of a welfare society where it just sustains itself and no accomplishment goes. And when you get to school here, we want you to be the first person for your family to graduate from college. And when you graduate, we want you to reach back to your family and do things with your family. And after you've done that, please come and help us because we need some help too.
Okay, so for all of us, I'm going to be shooting some questions at Coach here, but at the end of our discussion, there will be some time for each of you to ask some questions if you would like to. So you might want to be thinking about some things that you would like to ask. Let's just talk about the foundation at St. Anthony's, because you created this foundation. And basketball and winning is important. Your record speaks for itself, but yet, how do you decide what kids you're going to take and what kids you're not going to take?
Well, you know, I think the simplest way is to just take everybody.
So you take everybody, anybody who wants to come to St. Anthony's, you take.
If you can, you know, go through the application process. If you can, you're able to get recommendations from your primary school, and you come to school. You know, you can be a student. Now, when it comes to going out for the teams, you have to sign a contract to play. And the contract probably now has about 18 or 19 different things.
I want to talk about that contract in just a few minutes, but let's just talk about, you have parents that are sending their kids and they're coming great distances just to be with you. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think, and I have mixed emotions about that, because I think our mission has been to educate the kids in Jersey City. But as time has gone on, we can't, financially, kids can't even afford the $5,000. Kids come a little bit further because there's been rewards in doing that. Student scholarships to college, the opportunity to become, you know, a better basketball player. But it's a difficult thing because you're going to play 5 people in basketball. If 20 or 25 kids come to school all thinking that this is what's going to happen to them, you have to bring them down to the reality of that we're all in this, you know, want to get a good education. And to take basketball and take advantage of what basketball might be able to do for you to secure, you know, your college education. And it's not just scholarship kids. You know, we've got kids at Division III schools that are there with financial aid scholarships because they qualify for a lot of money and they've done well in school. So what we're trying to do is try to use this ball and make the ball be something that they can all head off to college. And, you know, all these things that St. Anthony's has done, I feel like we've done an awful lot of things. In 40 years, I've only had 2 kids that go to college. And that to me is the thing that we're proud of. I think the only negative, though, Giff, is that if you were the coach of St. Peter's College or New Jersey City University, I also believe that the kids should go away. So the guys there who coach right there, you know, it's like walking through the candy store. You can't have any candy because the kids are all going to go away to school because they've had enough of the city already. You know, they need to go to a campus. I have 2 in Rutgers. One of my kids just committed to Oregon State, so he's joining another kid who's in Oregon State now. And I have it at USC, I have it at UCLA. So there's a bunch of kids at the West Coast because they like traveling away from the city, different pace. You know, I'll have 20 kids this year that are going to play Division I basketball in the United States. Wow. And they're spread all over the United States.
One more question before I kind of leave this part of it, but how do you achieve the balance? Because we all have kids, we've got grandkids, we've got neighbor kids, and there are some athletes here tonight that when a coach drives you, you're either going to step up or you're going to wilt. Where do you find that balance with these kids? Because in that 60 minutes piece, you went after these kids and you challenged their manhood. You know, and where's that balance?
Well, I think what happens is the basketball season, all of these pieces that are done are always done from Thanksgiving to St. Patrick's Day, which is kind of the high school basketball season in New Jersey. No one has ever done anything from April until the following November, when we're running study halls or kids are going to make college visits or we're helping kids get jobs. None of those things, as good, as wonderful as those things are, there's no sizzle in that. But when they have a chance to put me on the documentary and I'm flipping out, or in the book I'm going berserk, they love those things because the sizzle seems to be more significant than the substance. Is this something like reality television? Other than the Cake Boss, because I was on the Cake Boss.
What do you hope your kids kids are going to take away from their experience with you?
Well, I think the sense of accomplishment when a group of people works towards a common goal, and you take away individual comes out of it, and it becomes all about team. And we're all in this together, whether 3 or 4 assistant coaches, myself, my group of kids, anywhere from 15 to 20 kids that will be on my team, and we start and we work towards that individual thing all the time. It's just about team, and it's about getting better. So someone watches St. Anthony's play in December, and they say, oh, they weren't such a bad team. And then you look at them in January, we're better. In February, we're better. And then if you play us in March, watch out. Because we've been together for a long time, and we've taken all these individual personalities, and we've meshed everything together as we all try to just now collectively be successful.
Are there times where you look at a kid and you don't think he's going to make it, and then all of a sudden the light goes on? And what kind of an experience is that? Because once again, we as parents and some of the athletes here might question their abilities, and they might question their coach. And all of a sudden something happens where something just starts to click.
Well, you try to expose them to as many things as you can to try to get that light to go on. I think the most recent thing we've done with the kids is we've had the kids all meet the lone survivor, okay, about a Navy SEAL team behind the lines in Afghanistan. And what the kids learn from that is that the season is very difficult. If you look at like the beginning of our preseason, which is very hard, and you look at yourself on Monday and you say to yourself, oh my goodness, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we don't start scrimmaging the following week. This is hard. But if you just take each day and battle through that day and get it behind you, the situation is so much better. And we use the Hell Week, which people think, my kids and my team think Hell Week is our first week of practice. So we try to get them to realize that get through each day, do the best you can, get proper sleep, focus all your time on this, because the most successful people in the world are driven to be successful. Very rarely do you find someone with just unbelievable, like in basketball, LeBron James is a very unusual person. He has ability that most athletes don't have. More people are like Steve Nash, we think, who came from Canada, made himself the player he is. It's much easier for us to use a Steve Nash for the kids to emulate than it would be LeBron James. So you want them to know that this is the way.
Because of natural ability.
Yeah, just the work ethic and the passion and believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, I don't know if you have a bad day because you're doing something you're inspired to do. And I want the kids to dream. I want them to all dream about playing college basketball. And I want kids to even dream it a little bit further about maybe after college, maybe there's a chance to play professionally. So the kids that are getting their education, even in college, juniors or seniors, they're talking to me about representation. What kind of agent should we be talking to? And I want them to, I think a lot of them can play. Many of the kids, as we speak, are now over in Europe. And they have agents, but they have agents and they're living in Spain, and they're living in Austria, and in Germany. And they're, playing basketball for a while, and the ball's going to get put down pretty soon.
This might be unfair, but I was just thinking, is there one player that you have had where you kind of questioned if he was going to make it, and then he just all of a sudden turned it on and just became something special?
I'd like to tell you about half the team every year. And what I do offer though, so you can understand, if you do happen to come up to the metropolitan area, anywhere from the Monday after Thanksgiving to that first week of March, if you're up, you can call a school, you can come to watch practice, and you can sit back and just say to someone you out the door, wow, they worked hard. And I'm so old school. Practice, whistle, everything stops. Whistle, point to the circle, everybody sprints to the circle. Last one does push-ups. We get so good at this. I blow the whistle, and we're shooting. And we're shooting during practice, I blow the whistle. The basketball stops in the air.
So what's your secret for all of us to be able to relate to that is that there's always hope. If you're out there and you're an athlete, or you're the parent of an athlete, and you're encouraging your child, or you're encouraging somebody in the neighborhood, or your grandchild, you just keep encouraging them because you don't know when that time is going to come where somebody's just going to go.
You know how great it is? I have so many kids playing college that are examples of the late bloomer, or the kid who was just determined and he just kept working and he had increments of improvement over a period of time. There's a kid at Fordham University, if you would Google Chris Gaston, he's going to be a senior at Fordham this year. He'll be an All-Atlantic 10 player. When he was on my freshman team, he didn't play at all. When he's on my sophomore JV team, he didn't play at all. He had grown from 6'1" to like 6'3". When he was going to be a junior, he was now like 6'4". I played him about half a game. By the time he's a senior, he's now 6'5½". But what happened was, those assistant coaches of mine who didn't play him for his first 2 years, he's a learning disabled kid, and he has some severe learning disabilities. He had the same, when he wasn't being made to feel good about himself his first 3 years, he didn't do well in school. The last 2 years, as basketball became better, academically, he went through the roof. He couldn't make up for his first 3 years. I put him in prep school for a year. After he was in prep school, Fordham University offered him a scholarship, and he's going to break a lot of records at Fordham before he graduates. I bring him back to talk to the kids on my team, and he says to everybody, you know, I didn't play as a freshman. I didn't play. He said this year he tried out for the Puerto Rican national team. He's going to play professionally. He's now 6'7", he weighs 220 pounds. He was 6'1", he weighed 140 pounds.
Watered in and fertilized?
Absolutely. And you know what you need to know? Tall mom at home. Huge. When you want to find out about potential growth, tall I don't know whether you know anything. I don't know whether you would know the name Hrncir Family, but he played at Duke University, he played in the NBA, played for the Atlanta Hawks. And when he came to high school, he was about 6'1" as a freshman. His dad was 5'5". I knew his dad from the rec gyms in Jersey City. Father was like a blur as a basketball player. And to this day, his father still thinks the reason why he's a basketball player is because of him. But his mom was almost 6 foot tall. She was a great softball player named Belle McLeod, a great softball player. He got all the athletic genes from mom. He never told dad anything about it. And he's now 6'8", and he played in the NBA, he was a Duke, all ACC player Duke. Wow.
Okay, so you bring these kids in and you actually structure a contract with them. You get a contract, you get a deal. They sign a document saying that they're going to keep these 19 different rules.
Right. Is it a legal document? In my world, it is. And, you know, when we have to mete out justice, I'm the one that sits in now. I'm the judge and jury. You know, so when you have your choice in the criminal justice system, you can go to trial with jury, or you can go to trial with judge. You go to trial with judge here. Okay, so I take care of all of this. And it's, there's all logical things in the contract. It makes the kids, and I was a probation officer for 30 years, and we used to do drug testing on Mondays. And I always used to say to the guys that had probation, you go someplace over the weekend, and you know I'm going to test you on Monday, and drugs are going to stay in your system for a period of time. You can always say, no, I'm cool. Hurley's going to test me Monday. I can't do that. Okay? The same thing holds true with my kids at St. Anthony's. If they can't just say, no, I'm cool, they can turn and walk out the door of something that they shouldn't be at, because they know one of my conditions is, if I suspect something, I will urine test you. I urine tested my whole team last year. Is that something that the parents are against? I don't know. If you want to play for me, that's part of being there. My experience in drug education with adults is such that I think that if I can nip the bud with the young person at 15, 16, 17, I can really help that person before it gets, you know, it accelerates. But at the same time, I have a responsibility in a private school. If something becomes aware, if I become aware of something, I have a responsibility to all the other kids, that I can't have someone who becomes a guru who isn't doing everything that they should be doing. So I tested the whole group last year. 2 were positive. I separated them from the program, put them into counseling for 2 months. But what happens in the world of these athletes with all the potential they have, you separate from us. The kids are working for 2 months. You return to where you were. We're gone. You're now going to chase the group, and that's unfortunately happens each time for those individual kids. But I think the kids who are, you know, adhering to the rules, it makes them realize that, you know, doing things correctly is the right way to do things.
So I'm sitting here listening to you because the successful programs that I've been in my life, the coach has always set barriers and said, here are the barriers, here's what we're going to live by, and then you go do it. And it sounds like these kids have responded to you. I wouldn't think that you would have too many problems because you set the barriers. You set the law right there and say, okay, sign this, let's go.
You know, I think when I talked to the college kid home, and we handed out we get this year's contract. They just started school this past Monday. So I have the contract and I'm whipping it together and changing some things. And I always had one of the college kids home when I handed it out. So last year, Tyshawn Taylor, who played at Kansas, was home. Donald Copeland, who plays over in Europe, was home. And Delvon Arrington, who was one of my captains back in the 90s, he played at Florida State. They all happened to be at the gym that day. So when I'm talking to the kids, I got
just happened to be at the gym that day.
So they all want to stop, you know, enjoy and laugh at the things going on because they see in the kids themselves at that age. And I show each of them a contract, and each one looks at it and they laugh and they shake their head like, "You got this. This is good." So I said, "Did you see the reaction from each of these guys?" I said, "They're my guys. Every one of them thinks that this is good. Do I care now what you think? Because these are my guys. You haven't gotten through the wars yet. When you finish playing, you're now in this fraternity now, just like if you finished Hell Weekend, you're now going to become an Navy SEAL. It's akin to them of doing the same things."
Let's talk about the family affair you've got going right now, because your wife is keeping score at the game.
My wife keeps score.
She keeps score at the game. She hears you yell the whole game, right?
Unless she happens not to be paying attention.
You got your wife involved in the program, and then of course
My
Bobby.
daughter is immensely involved. My daughter's she got a master's in special education, and she teaches in the Jersey City system, and she grew up around the program. So my sons may have played at school. They're alums now. They've drifted away. They're doing other things. They come back to see us. My daughter's in charge of social media. She's 32, and if you put I don't care how old you are, if you're in college and something goes on your Facebook page, she's friended everyone. If you try to, I don't know what the term is, unfriend or whatever you want to do, I don't know what the term is, but if you try to avoid my daughter, then we have a suspension because everything that you do from the point you leave playing for us, you're saying if something goes well and it's in the paper, it'll be a St. Anthony's grad, in the local newspaper. If something doesn't go well, it's going to be St. Anthony grad. So if it's anything with social media, Twitter or Facebook or any of these things, my daughter checks the times that the kids are on. So I have a curfew. So if you're on Twitter at 3 o'clock in the morning, she'll say to me, Kyle Anderson, who's now playing at UCLA, he's 3 o'clock in the morning. He's talking to somebody in California because of the 3-hour difference. We'll call the family and we'll say, "Are you aware that Kyle's up at 3 o'clock in the morning?" How would I know that? I wouldn't know that. My daughter, who is very close with the kids, is director of, good judgment. And I'm the policing agency of that.
Okay, so I mean, Bobby, we all just absolutely loved watching Bobby. Duke was on television, and we saw this incredible career. We just went with Mike Krzyzewski at Duke and just did an incredible job. Danny played for you, and now Danny is coaching, and Bobby is an associate head coach or something for Danny.
Yeah, the oldest is working for the middle child. And boy, payback is tough.
What was that like for them growing up? I mean, what was the family?
Well, my sons are 18 months apart, and they shared a finished garage. That's the best way I can describe where they were growing up, because as my kids were growing up, my wife's mom moved in with us, and all of a sudden, I think the square footage for the house wouldn't fit the standards that perhaps should have. So we had to do something. So the guys went to the basement, and we turned it into our version of a man cave. They had their own entrance, and they were down. But 18 months apart, played ball together every day.
Was it just
on little league teams together, and played all throughout, all growing up. And they were sometimes in the neighborhood we grew up in. The only sound you heard after school was the ball going down the street to the playground, and then coming back. I'm sitting 6 o'clock. The bells ring in our neighborhood at St. Paul's Church. That was dinner. You could go back out again when the weather was warm until the street lights went on. When the street lights went on, you went home. Okay, so you had these things built in about what times you did things. That was the way the neighborhood kind of policed each other. And my sons were together all the time playing. bitter rivals, best friends, roomies. Got older now. One got into coaching right away. The other one played professionally and then worked back to coaching. And honestly, it's funny, my son Bobby, who had a great college career, played professionally, I think what had a great professional career, had a very bad automobile accident, kind of robbed him of his potential. I had to convince my son, Danny, that he was coaching material. He kept saying to me, he was an NBA player. He was an NBA player. That's an indictment of whether you're going to work hard. Because the NBA guys, after they retire, a lot of guys don't know what to do because they used to just being basketball players. So I had to remind him that he played for Mike Krzyzewski, and he played for me. I'm very demanding. And he had to actually be interviewed by his brother. Now, last year, God's honest truth, last year, the Rhode Island job opens up. Danny wants to take the job down at Rhode Island after 2 years. Wagner wants to give Bobby the job. Okay? He's actually going to get more money to be the head coach than Danny got. Danny's not going to take the Rhode Island job unless the brother goes with him. So boy, in 2 years did that thing change. Wow. Yeah.
Well, you got to be awfully proud of your family and the way you have kind of integrated this whole career with them.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it any other way. The hours that I put in with the team, this couldn't be something that my wife didn't care about. Because if she didn't, it wouldn't. I don't think it would work. I don't think we'd ever have the time to reflect on all the things that happened that we were so excited about. But I think the fact that my son's played at the school, I'm there 45 years. We're married 42 years. My poor wife met me in a playground in Jersey City. That's how this wonderful romance began. And so she's kind of a basketball person now. She has strong, if she was here today, we could get into some strong conversation about who she likes as a college coach, why, feelings about watching games on TV. She questions strategy now because she's been around it. We may have created a monster here with this now.
And so the program has just grown immensely, and people are, you were on 60 Minutes. There was a documentary done in 2007 and 8, I believe. The Street Stops Here, 300 hours of filming they did on this. And it was kind of interesting, as I understand it, because this was one of your talented teams. It was a senior-based team, and it was one team that had not won a state championship. And yet they wanted to come and do a documentary on them, and you were hoping that they would get the same feeling that all the other teams should have.
And these things that we've done have been done because we think it's helped us to spread the word. So I'm here. And from this, something positive may happen for the school. You never know. So we do these, and in doing these, the basketball has become something that people become aware of. If you read USA Today, you'll know something about St. Anthony basketball. But if you happen to look at the documentary, you might know more about St. Anthony basketball. And then if you meet one of the kids, it's a little bit different. But the things that have happened because of the exposure have spread the word of what the school tries to do, how they the education level. We were talking earlier. I have 2 seniors that are being recruited by Ivy League schools right now, and I have 2 juniors being recruited by Ivy League schools. I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of that, because academically our school has come even further. That we're taking kids now that have potential, that are behind, and now they're winding up with transcripts that Ivy League schools are now looking at. Monday I had Columbia, I had Brown, and I had Princeton at the gym. We're extremely proud of that because that shows the opportunities that are going to go down the road are going to be a basketball opportunity. It turns out to be a life opportunity.
So 24 state championships. Did every one of your players win a state championship?
The OA team was on, they were on a respirator. They had,
every player you've had has won a state championship?
Everyone who's played in school has won at least one state championship.
You've won 4 national titles. So your program is known not only locally in New Jersey but around the country. And if I'm understanding this correctly, that this little documentary is also a fundraising documentary for the school, right? You're trying to make
I think they just wind up. If you're going to do a documentary and you come in and you say, well, what does St. Anthony's get from the documentary? Nothing. We don't get a penny. But what we possibly can get is that we can get the word out. So it's been on ESPN recently. A bunch of people have seen it. It's translated into some pretty good things for school. So you do those things for that reason. The kids that are in those documentaries have opened their lives up a little bit. And it's, you know, it's some powerful stuff because, you know, their lives aren't traumatic. The things that they're letting people know about are not things that you necessarily want people to share, except that the kids feel very good about themselves, that wherever these circumstances have been for them, they're in a better place and they see, you know, good things happening for themselves.
So one more question from me before we open it up to each of you. So if you want to start formulating some questions, please do that. But your most memorable moment, I mean, when you think about 1,000 wins, you think about 24 state championships, you think about 4 national championships. Can you pinpoint just one moment in your coaching career that you said, wow, this was absolutely a cut above everything else?
No.
I didn't think that was
In a way, Giff, we've been so successful. We've had such like amazing success that, you know, like one thing that I personally feel good about, around 2007, 2006, 2007, I was now hitting my, I'm 65. So I was now, what's the math on that? That's 6, 7 years ago. I'm in my late 50s. And all of these rules that we talk about have made me now irrelevant. I'm no longer the AAU. I don't get along with the AAU coaches. I don't think the rules should change. All the kids who played for me tell me, don't change anything. You're doing everything right. But all over the place, websites and basketballies, know-it-alls are saying, this guy has lost it. He's not good. He's not relevant with the way the game has changed. So meanwhile, I go to clinics all the time. The game of basketball, I know as many things are current, that's where I am. I think as an educator, if I was trying to teach the kids, this is what we did in 1984 when we won a state championship, and I'm saying that to the kids now, they'd say, oh, wait, 1984, I wasn't even born. I don't know what the world that is. So I try to stay relevant, but there was a lot of word among these experts that I was past mine at that time. Since 2008, we've been undefeated 2008, 2011, and 2012. Now, we've only been undefeated 7 times in 40 years, 3 times since. We've won 2 national championships since 2008. And every one of those kids would say, the guy knows what he's doing. He's a maniac. What he cares about is he's crazy. The kids say, he's crazy. He's crazy, but he cares about it. And in Jersey City, it used to be the probation part of it. No longer my probation officer. I've been retired for a few years. I'm just at school a lot now, demanding. I like to say demanding, not crazy. You know, because I think there's a method, but when you, every once in a while, when you throw everybody out of a practice, or if you watch the documentary filmed me for 300 hours. We were behind only 1 time in a game the whole season in the second half. There were hundreds of great hours. Like a reality show, they took every crazy moment of the 300 hours, or at least that's my story. And they were all out there. If you ask the kids, by the time the kids are seniors, they no longer listen to my delivery. They just take what I'm saying. When I go home, no ulcers, I forget. And amazingly, the kids the next day, there's always another guy who's going to screw up, so we do forget about the day after the previous day.
All right. Any questions? Anybody have any questions you would like to pose to Coach Bob Hurley? Let's go right back here.
Style-wise, your coaching, compared to any college coaches out there?
You know what people always say, and they couldn't be further from the truth. People have met me here, a couple of people have said something about having read the book or watched a documentary, they see Coach Knight in me. Okay? I can see myself coaching at Indiana or Texas Tech. I don't see Coach Knight coaching at St. Anthony's. Okay? In order for school to stay open, I bounce around and I do things that promote what we do with the kids. Okay? And I never leave a place that I visit that I haven't made some friendships. I don't know that that would have happened. Okay? We're not the same. We might have, you know, the gray hair and maybe some characteristics of saying he's a great coach, but the time removed from basketball, I'm much more of a person that would be affable, not struggling with controversy.
Got a question right over here.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one from Jersey City, and I know I'm the only one from St. Paul's Greenville in this room tonight.
Do you know her?
St. Paul's Greenville.
I grew up on Greenville Avenue, and the sound of the basketball hoop is ingrained in my head. I can hear the chains from my house.
What was the number of the house?
I was the Hegelman across the street.
Oh my goodness. Oh, we're talking about directly next to the convent. Directly next to the convent, and I would be walking up the block or running the leagues in the playground there, and oh my goodness, it's very good to see somebody from home.
Minor ambassador for our city and our state. Unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you so
I am
much.
so proud of you.
I'm very proud to meet somebody from the city right now. Absolutely great. The place where I grew up was an absolutely great place to live. You know, I raised my kids in Jersey City. As my daughter was going through high school, neighborhood was changing a little bit, so we now sent her to a Catholic school in Bayonne, a girls' academy, Holy Family Academies. But my sons grew up with some balance in their lives. They learned to travel from one place to another. They met people from all different backgrounds. At our school, they met kids whose backgrounds were very different than theirs. They became lifelong friends. The things that I grew up with, I still have friends from, Bartholdi, George Blaney, the Blaney family was very big in Greenville. George is the assistant coach at UConn. Jimmy and I played together in high school. Jimmy's a Superior Court judge in Ocean County. I'm going down to do a fundraiser for him in Ocean County in another week. His brother Mike, I used to coach at St. Paul's. So, the connections in our town are tremendous. And, I fondly remember, growing up in the city, not having a great deal, but having a lot. It was just spectacular.
This is a great little connection. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Got a question right here.
You mentioned that you could coach at Tech or Indiana. With all of your success, certainly people have come calling over the years. And have you ever thought about making the move? And if so, and you decided not to, obviously, why did you?
Lack of ambition might be a way to go. And it was very simply, at age 23, I flew for the first time, on my honeymoon. So I hadn't moved. I went to school, educated in high school, college in Jersey City. Bought my first car at like 21, 23, I flew for the first time. So I wasn't necessarily going to go from that world to all of a sudden go and coach at a college, unless it was going to be close to home. But I did go in, Pete Gillen was a friend of mine who was working at Notre Dame. He recruited David Rivers. He's probably a first grade player. He went to Notre Dame and had a great career there. And Pete left Notre Dame to go to Xavier University. He offered me the opportunity to go out there. My wife and I went to Cincinnati. My son was going to be a freshman in high school. My son David's going to be a 7th grader. So they both wanted to play at school. We went there. We looked at schools. We went to Moeller in Cincinnati. Thought that would be a good school for our kids to go to, Catholic high school. We visited different neighborhoods. The kind of house we could have gotten at that time in that area versus living in the Northeast was unbelievable. Shook hands, went home, and told the kids, come in on Sunday afternoon after being there for 2 days. Told them I shook hands, I'm going to become the assistant coach at Cincinnati. And the two of them looked at me and they said, you have to answer these questions. And they had about 10 questions that they had put together. They had never invested this much time doing anything in their lives. And the first one was, I'm Bobby, I'm 14 years old. I'm at a very impressionable time in my life. You're going to be recruiting on the road. What's happening to me in this new environment? And I'm telling you, I'm using the words that we used here. I don't know who did the work for them. But after we answered the 10 questions and flunked this pop quiz badly, I called Pete Gillen Monday morning and said, Pete, I can't do it. Pete hired Skip Prosser. Skip Prosser was a coach from West Virginia, great high school coach. He went on to become head coach at Xavier. He was at Wake Forest. had a heart attack a couple of years ago and passed away, and he and I were attached at the hip because, you know, that expression, not the road, not taken. I've never looked back from that. So jobs in the metropolitan area like St. John's, St. Paul, Fordham multiple times, Rutgers, as the people will come to me and talk to me about would I take the job, I always advise them who I think the best person would be to take the job. Because I'm just not it. You know, somebody said to me a long time ago, even though I'm cranky and I look like I'm annoyed half the time, I'm in my glory when I'm doing it, and I found my bliss. And now I'm retired, like Coach, who's in the same boat as me now, Coach Mack and I both don't really work. We're in school every day doing something. So I found that now it's amazing not to have the day worries and be able to just coach every day. I love college basketball, but I really should be where I am. And, you know, I feel much better about that. And then this thing right here, which is the ring to go into the Basketball Hall of Fame, wow, I never take this thing. So it worked out really well for me.
Do we have one of our young people here? Any of our kids, any of our young people have any questions for Coach? And if not, we'll move to...
They're afraid of me. They saw the documentary. The kids don't want to move on me.
Right back here, Mr. Gage.
She was raising her hand.
We got who's
Right over there.
But I'm not a young
right here?
person. I was going to ask if you had any advice. I know you coached your boys. Advice for us parents here as far as coaching and probably a fine balance.
Well, you know, the time I started coaching them, they were of high school age. Prior to that, I would just coach my high school kids, and then I would go to the park with them, and I went to the park with them like I grew up at the park. I would take them to the park, and the three of us would go there, and we would just play one-on-one. One would take winners. I would play one. I would keep the court until Bobby got to about 15. When Bobby got to 15 and he started beating me, it was like the Karate Kid. I now moved him along to better competition and then worked with the other guy. But we never went to the park where we talked about, all right, I want you to shoot 100 jump shots. We would go in and play. And then I would say to them, you know, you want to play at school, you got to keep working at this. And the validation for them was when they made me not coach at college, boy, do I have an edge on them. Because I would say to them, I'm here in this school, you told me you were going to do this, and I would put the guilt trip on them, and they'd be out working, you know, hard again. I think when they're ready for high school, it was phenomenal. Because I had a van, and I would fill the van up with kids from St. Anthony's. On the way to school every day, I would drop kids off. I'd pick them up as they go through town, drop them off school. When we would finish practice, for years we finished practice on weekends, I would fill my car on the way to practice. I'd drop kids off on the way home. David Rivers, when mentioned, one of the greatest players ever played our school, when he was a sophomore in high school, he wouldn't have money for a bus to go to practice. And on Saturday morning and Sunday morning, you could get your bus tickets during the week so you could go to school. But for the weekends, you couldn't use bus tickets. So David, so he could be practice on time, would run from wherever he lived, he would run to practice. And then I ultimately found out after a couple of weeks that Dave would be there waiting for the custodian to open up. So I said to him, David, I will pick you up every day that you're the same person, and we'll do that till you graduate. And then when David was a senior, David said to me, Coach, we're practicing a little bit later. When I get home now, David is one of 14 children, and a bunch of his siblings would have their children over at the house. So nieces and nephews were always at the Rivers house. And he'd get home a little bit past 6:30, and dinner was pretty much done. So he started to say to me, let's drop you off now. Let's start dropping you off at different sisters' houses that aren't at my house. And he would pick out a different sister at night on the way home. We'd drop him off. He'd have to go dinner there, do a little homework, and then go home. So we kind of developed that relationship. And then as I got to high school, I'd fill the van with kids, go to school in the morning, drop them all off. After practice, bring them all home. And I'd have the other two in the car by the end of it. It was amazing. My sons learned that the other kids actually liked me. And when we're in the car, we talk about everything under the sun. after practice, unless we had a really bad practice. Really bad practice, the oldie station is turned up. I squeeze the wheel and I listen to my music. I don't talk to them, and as they get out, it's one of those, you better have a good day tomorrow. But unfortunately for those two, they're still in the car. They gotta go home, and then Mrs. Hurley would intervene, and she would sit down, we'd come in the house. It was like the old days when we finished playing one-on-one, each person came in the house, the last one in had lost a lot of games, usually the youngest. And people aren't talking to each other. We'd assemble for dinner, and we had a 15-minute period now where we could do no basketball. We had family discussion, and this was painful for 15 minutes. 7 o'clock, ESPN, college games are on. We're like taking this 15 minutes and we're trying. We've already been in the car together twice during the day. It's Mrs. Hurley wants to get control of the ship again. After 15 minutes, we're all looking at our clock. Can we put your watches? Can we put the games on? And then we moved up. It was great to do it, to be around it, because you did communicate with your kids. I don't know so much if I did it when they were younger, because having been a high school coach and very demanding, I don't know when they were 11 and 12 that they could have, could have done that.
Did you want the quick answer? Involvement. That's what I've heard. Involvement. You're right there with your kids. That's so important. That is so important. Let's take one more question.
Maybe Giff can do this now. We can get to the what do you call version now? The Cliff Notes version.
Let's take one more question all the way in the back, right back here.
I used to go to high school in North Carolina and actually applied to be a grad assistant with a skip. So I'm glad I know. In American college basketball now, it seems like there's a big dichotomy. There's two schools of thought. So there's the Krzyzewski way, where the kids who come through your program kind of are conformed to basketball the way Coach Krzyzewski envisions it, as opposed to the Calipari way, where he changes his vision of basketball to fit the kids that he has in the program. And I was just kind of curious what you thought about that and what that means for basketball.
Yeah, the college game has always been a great game. And I like to think that the time that they made kids stay for a longer time, Shaquille O'Neal was in college for a few years. Alonzo Mourning, I believe, stayed for almost all of his 4 years of college. Patrick Ewing was a 4-year player. The NBA would be a better league if the college kids could stay in college longer, because they'd be more polished. The socialization that you get in college, you can't simulate at the NBA. So these kids, like for every LeBron James who goes to school, goes right to the NBA, there are countless other kids that aren't emotionally or socially ready for that. And also what happens is that you don't get coached the same. Once you get to the NBA, they play game after game after game. They don't have the time to devote with some of these younger players. And Kevin Garnett, I coached when he was a kid in an all-star game for the United States versus the world. And Kevin went right from high school to the NBA. And his first 2 years of college in the NBA, all he did was travel with video games. And when they travel, they'd be on the road, everybody get dressed, they go out and have dinner, they might stop at a club. And Kevin, being 18, 19 years old, would just stay back in the room and play video games. If he had to have it over again, I think he would have liked to play in college. I know Kobe Bryant would have liked to play college, except they were such talents that they were basketball-wise ready. But the college experience is awfully good. John Calipari plays with the rules as they exist right now, and he's been very successful doing it. Mike Krzyzewski, I think, would rather have a little bit more of a relationship with players, coach them over a longer period of time, watch them develop, and it's two schools of thought. The NBA and the NCAA signs that TV contract for $1 billion or more. They don't want to rock the boat right now, so I think it's going to continue. But in the best interest of basketball, we ought to allow a kid to leave after high school or stay for a couple of years in college. All these kids that are freshmen in college go to school, most of them go to school for the first semester. And if they know they're going to leave, they really know to take class in the second semester. And when the season ends, they hire, they go right to the prospect of getting an agent, and they get someone to train them, and they travel to IMG in Florida, or they go out to California and they start working out regularly to get ready for the draft. And those classes they get registered for, they're out of those classes already. They don't even complete the classes. So it's, you know, it's a bit of a sham when a freshman is playing and he doesn't even finish freshman year. They should have to finish at least 2 years. You know, the way baseball does it, you can sign out of high school, or if you go to school, you have to stay for 2 years. I think that's probably the way to go. But Kentucky's going to continue to win because this is the path of 6 months of class, and you have a chance to win to the draft, and I think a lot of kids are going to continue to do that.
What a treat tonight for all of us to be here, to listen to this, and have a chance to relate in our way to what we have heard from this Hall of Fame coach. I was telling Coach before, when I was asked by Tom and Georgia to do this, I was thinking of my high school year, 1973. We had a dream high school team, 27-0, won the state championship. And so I know the value of a coach, and I know what a coach means to me. When I came to Houston, played for a legendary coach. The guy was just amazing, Bob Phillips. And so I know what a coach can mean to families, what a coach can mean to an individual. So what an honor to be with you tonight. The Hall of Fame coach, Bob Hurley.
Thank you all for coming. I want to thank Betty and John Hrncir again for sponsoring this series. Coach Matt, thank you for being here and having your name on this. Giff, Coach Hurley, thank you so much for everything, the audience for your questions, and a special thanks to Georgia Piazza for all the things she's done to put this together, the development office and the facilities department for helping set this up. Let's give Coach Hurley one more round.